Brown, would you like to do it the other? Thank you.
Our gracious Heavenly Father, we're so thankful we could come before you this beautiful day. We're thankful for all the many blessings that Thou hast given this beautiful area in which we are privileged to live. We're thankful for the opportunity we have of serving in the positions that we do for the residents of Cardston. We'd ask a special blessing on us as we make decisions, that we may be able to think clearly and be responsible. We'd ask a special blessing this day on the Court family as they have lost their son and father and cousin and brother, that they may feel the love and support from our community and that they may be comforted in this time. We're so thankful for all we have. We know that all we have comes from Thee. These things we pray humbly in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councillor, for the prayer. So we are the 10th of July already, and we are going to call this meeting to order. It's a regular town council meeting, and we do have indeed very much Councillor Court on our minds for the loss of his son Sean at a way too early age. And I understand, councillors, that we are going to try to go and meet the family tonight if possible. We'll talk about it after the meeting. Thank you.
Let's just approve everything right now.
So there is the agenda. If
I move to approve the agenda unless there's no additions.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'm sorry, it sounds like down on committee and other reports, I have a proposal I'd like to make in that area as we discuss.
Is that part of your committee, Councillor?
No, it's for total committees. Okay.
Do you want to do that at this meeting, or do you want to do it at the next meeting?
Next meeting is CCW
Yeah.
in August.
No, it would be
September Council.
it would be the second week in August. Do you want to add it to that so we can
We're
have
having 2 council meetings in August. Just
Wow.
one. And it'll be a CCW.
No, there is no.
a regular meeting?
Yeah, we can do it in August.
Would that work?
Yep. you bet.
Maybe if you want to ask Jeff to add that to our agenda.
Yeah, that would expedite tonight.
Yeah, but it would allow us to discuss that a little bit more
Okay.
appropriately rather than feel rushed.
No
Okay,
problem.
thank you. Okay, so the agenda has no modification. All in favor? Thank you. We do not have the RCMP delegation. Zen was called in Bremen and we could not have him here. So you have the report. If there are any elements there that you feel need discussing, please make note of it and we will make sure that we address that. Okay? Ryan, I did not welcome you, but welcome to our meeting. You are from Orsk and you are going to talk about 2 draft bylaws that we have. One regarding the land use bylaw, the other the West Area Structure Plan. And thank you, Nolan, for being there in that capacity also regarding those bylaws. Please, if you like to come and talk. Thank you.
So I think we're speaking about the cannabis bylaw first, is that right?
Yes.
1647C, yeah.
That's the cannabis one.
Yes.
And as you know, there's been some ongoing discussion, and I've been working with staff on this, and I'm not sure that how much context is necessary because I'm sure you've been hearing about this for a long time. But really what we're doing here is a response to legislation passed by the federal and provincial governments respectively, and dealing with the implications for municipalities. And all municipalities across the country are dealing with this to some degree. We have been working with all our 41 member municipalities to develop a response that works for each individual community. And some of those are sometimes basically doing nothing and allowing the provincial rules to be the only rules that govern cannabis-related land uses, or taking a more active role, perhaps a more restrictive role, like the one we have in front of you today. So what I'd say is that this is, as mentioned, more of a restrictive response, and what it'll do is really require that the whole community have a chance to give input to any kind of cannabis-related land use application that might come forward in the future. It sets up the land use bylaws so that we have a high degree of oversight when these applications come forward. So if you like, I'll briefly walk you through what staff and I have drafted, and if you have any questions, we can go through them at any point. Now, I think you've all seen this map. So these green circles on here represent buffer zones from what we refer to as sensitive land uses.
So that's 300 feet,
These are in metric. These are in
300 meters.
300
meters.
and 100. Now, the province in its amendments to the alcohol, gaming, and cannabis regulation, I believe it's called, established 100-meter setbacks from provincial school facilities, hospitals, also from parcels designated what's called municipal reserve or municipal and school reserve. So that's the baseline sort of setback requirement from a cannabis retail sales operation. Municipalities can increase those numbers. They can also choose to decrease those numbers. For context, the bigger urban centers in the province have been dealing with this for a while, and have all used a very sort of robust public consultation process. The city of Lethbridge recently passed their amendments, and what they did is just went with the province's 100 meters from schools and hospitals. They were at the public hearing lobbied by folks in the religious community to establish a 150-meter setback from religious assembly uses, but they chose to just keep it at the 100-meter provincial standard. So just for context, that's what some of the cities have done. Some of your neighbors, like Raymond and some of the other municipalities in the region, are taking a similar approach to what you're doing. Raymond isn't using direct control, which is what we're proposing here, but they are regulating it so that you can only allow it in an industrial area, and probably making it fairly difficult to establish an operation in the town.
Councillor Bengry.
Ryan, when we look at our community, would the Agrodome be classed as an outdoor sports area?
Well,
outdoor recreation?
Yeah, what we've done here is we have decided to classify it as such.
Because I'm looking at the schools, the location of our schools, outdoor recreation areas, parks, so forth. Pretty hard to find a place for this.
Yeah. Yeah, on the map, as you've probably seen,
Yeah.
You can see it right there.
the whole downtown area is within the buffers, maybe save for a small strip east of Main Street there. There is some opportunity, I suppose, in the industrial area as well. So those would be the only logical areas where a commercial type use like this could locate based on the draft we have in front of you.
Now, sub question to that. I've been watching the AUMA clippings, and there's one community that says, hey, we're not even going to entertain this. And they found them out of order for doing that.
You have to respect the law
Yeah,
of the land.
and but this community says we're not even going to entertain that cannabis thing, and now they are fighting it with the federal government, and the federal government hasn't even released when this is going to become law.
In October.
In October. Well, they say October sometimes, but they haven't put a definite date on it.
Councillor Selk, did you have a question? No, I thought that's not it. Okay, all right, so is it something more that we can do than this? I mean, essentially, that is what we ask you to do, is to create the buffer zones and for us to look at it and to put it through a public hearing and garner feedback from the citizens. So essentially, that's where we at. That's a proposal, 300-meter buffer zone, and wait and see what the public has to say before we can pass second and third reading.
Yeah, and in response to Councillor Bengry's comment, I think what we have here is a fairly solid and sound approach, as opposed to a community who might just be outwardly saying we're not going to allow this type of thing. We've established these buffers with consideration from the comments that Alberta Health Services have gave us. So that was, you'll recall there was some discussion about that early on, and in using their numbers, we have some basis with which to sort of fall back on. We haven't cooked up these numbers out of thin air, so I think we're in a far better position than, say, a community who's just wants to say that we're not going to entertain this type of thing.
I was going to move first reading of bylaw 1647C.
Thank you. Questions?
Yeah.
No, go ahead. We have questions. Let's have
Yeah, I just
questions.
had a quick
Councillor
question. You go ahead first, finish up what your...
Ryan, when we set these boundaries, we decide we're going to set these boundaries, we don't have to have that public hearing until 5 days before, right?
Well, you have to hold a public hearing before second reading of the bylaw.
Before the second reading?
Before second reading.
Okay, how about third reading?
No, it has to be before second. And you have to notify, for any land use bylaw or statutory plan amendment or adoption, you have to hold that public hearing. You have to advertise for 2 weeks in a newspaper or through another appropriate means prior to the hearing.
So what's our time frame to establish an area?
Well, it would depend on your summer schedule. I'm not sure if you're using your regular meeting schedule or not.
They're going to talk about appropriate time for public hearing after this because it's summer. My concern is holding one in the summer has some scrutiny.
Exactly.
So I was thinking September 11th is going to be this regular council meeting.
I think September is fine. I mean, as you know, they announced this October 17th date. If you're close to that, I think you've done well. Even if you're behind that, you're fine. You know, if someone's knocking at the door, waiting for this type of thing, they can wait a little longer. I don't think there's any problem with that.
Okay, so is these buffer zones based on the 100 or the 300?
So there's two colors there. It's primarily a 300-meter buffer
Okay.
from certain land uses. We went with the 100-meter buffer from the hospital. It really amounts to about the same thing because of that church located just east of there.
Right.
So,
The Catholic Church there.
you know, were you to say a 300-meter buffer across the board, it would have little consequence.
Yeah.
Maybe that would appear more objective. Maybe that's something we want to do.
Okay. No, that was all I had.
That's it? Okay. All in favor? Thank you. All right, so first reading has been completed on this bylaw. So we now will go on to the West Area Structure Plan Amendment. And this is to consider only the first reading also.
Okay, so you've received an application from a landowner to amend one of the areas in the West Carson Area Structure Plan. This plan was adopted in, I believe it was 2007, and has been amended a couple times. So I guess to back up a bit, any landowner, any citizen can make an application to amend a statutory plan or a land use bylaw. You have to respond to an application. Typically, what best practice is to always give first reading, because this person has made application, paid their fee, and then hold a public hearing. Bylaws like this, land use related bylaws, are rarely defeated at first reading, just for context.
Right.
I don't believe that that's your plan today. Anyways, So we have a design that the landowner has come up with in consultation with staff, so to change that westerly area there, 3rd Avenue West adjacent to the west bypass. Now, in my experience with this plan, I'm not sure that it's doing the job that it was intended to do in 2007. As we know, the economy was in a different position then. Land development, the real estate scenario was much different. Things haven't moved near as quickly as I think were anticipated in 2007. So in the subdivision applications that I've received, there's often been inconsistencies. Can we do this a little different? Does this work given the current, economic scenario, land development scenario in the town? But that's part of, I guess, the bigger picture with this plan. With respect to this particular application, which proposes to do a couple things. It proposes to allow 2 direct accesses onto the west bypass. Oh, there's my
One.
right. Okay, one new one. Sorry, I'm just going to pull it up here. I didn't have it with me. So I'm not sure if you have what the existing plan looks like in front of you.
They've got the, if I could, Madam Mayor, you have the proposed,
Yes, this one with the dotted line.
because I wasn't thinking about it. That's what this is the existing. The only change is just pushing through a cul-de-sac. That's what,
And moving the lot line a little bit
yeah.
too.
So that's the existing as it sits today. And then on your devices, you have the proposed.
Yeah, so as mentioned, to push both that 3rd Avenue West and 2nd A Avenue West cul-de-sac bulbs to the west, so to connect with the west bypass. The proposal also desires to decrease the density. As you can see, the lotting pattern in the existing plan is about twice the density of what's proposed. So those are the 2 main changes here. Now, when I was originally discussing this with staff, and staff was in talks with the applicant, we had furnished 2 sort of alternative designs for consideration. I'm not sure if council's seen these or not.
I'm trying to remember last meeting.
They probably saw them when Mike was here,
We
because
saw them, so-
Mike had those.
I don't think it's critical that you see these now, because the way this process works, again, and getting back to typical procedure and procedural fairness, you will probably give first reading to this bylaw. At the time of public hearing, it's likely that I may make a representation to you that you consider an alternative design. And I'll just very quickly give you my impressions on what's going on here. Not being a transportation engineer and not knowing the west bypass very well, it just seems to me that allowing two new direct accesses onto this road that's designated a bypass type road is a little unusual. If you want this road to function as an arterial type facility, you're typically going to want to limit the amount of new direct access points onto it.
That makes sense.
Ryan, I agree with you. Not only that, it becomes a thoroughfare straight down 2nd and 3rd Avenue. It's a takeoff zone.
That's my main comment with respect to this. As you know, or as you maybe know, when we did the municipal development plan a few years back, and with regard to the objectives in the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan, my philosophy with respect to density is generally to try and keep densities a little higher than maybe what's typical in the town, at least in terms of the long-term objective. So decreasing the density by almost in half, I'm not sure that that's the most appropriate thing to do. However, I am aware of the land development situation in town, and I completely understand the desire for larger lot sizes.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, what you have in the amendment, in the application, is a request for 12 lots. In these alternative designs that we had produced, they show 16 and 17 lots, respectively. So that, I think, is a little bit of maybe a middle ground from what's there right now. But again, that's an amendment to a statutory plan is completely council's prerogative. So again, I'll probably submit something in writing that you can consider at the public hearing, that the applicant can also see, and we can have some more robust discussion about this matter.
Councillor Bengry.
In consideration of the open to Second and Third Avenue, what's it going to do for stormwater retention? There's going to be quite a collection area, because that's quite a wet area in the fall and in the spring. What's our infrastructure going to look like?
I'm not aware of what the implications would be for stormwater management. I know this plan did look at stormwater management at a more sort of cursory level.
Nolan, you want to address
If you look at the amendment map that he's got, we're also fixing up some of the other parts of the bylaw where the stormwater pond is on the 9th there. That will be the collection area for all of these areas. And prior to any developer putting in any roads or anything, that they're going to have to get an engineer to do a design to show how that water is going to get to that stormwater pond. And then Mike also discussed that if there wasn't enough lots, the potential between the two roads that he's developing, those lots have the potential of being cut in half and one lot facing each way, which would give them an extra few more lots, if that's the kind of lots that people are wanting to purchase. So he's trying to find lots that people are purchasing. We're finding that more of the bigger lots are selling faster than the smaller lots.
Yeah.
So that's why he wants to divide it the way that he does.
And really, if there's less lot, there's less water at the end of the day.
Well, we've had a lot of water problems up there. A lot of water problems.
I was going to suggest that area there where these two cul-de-sacs, this is the proposed, right?
That's the
Yeah,
current
it's just,
That
it's
land
flat.
slopes like this.
Yeah.
The bowl, there's already a dugout there, it's always full of water. It fills up with every rainstorm.
Right.
So that, the whole piece of land's going to have to be
Part of
leveled
the
off.
reason that Mike wants to get the other approaches in is because he wants to start filling that in as soon as he can. He isn't going to do a subdivision that's like right away. He wants to get the change so we can have the two approaches. And then he will start to fill the land in and bring it up to grade it needs to be for that.
But there's more to just filling in land.
Right, that's why.
That type of land has its own drainage
That's
issues.
why he has to have an engineered plan.
Yeah,
to
because
show
he might have to
how it
put
has
some
to be.
kind of underground drainage system, like they do in many farms. They have to put in drainage systems so that the land doesn't just flood all the time. So anyways, just a thought.
Good thought. Any other question or comments so for Ryan? So essentially, Councillor, the first reading does not become binding without a public hearing. And the public has definitely the privilege to come and ask questions,
At the second
comments after the first reading. And Ryan is willing to offer alternatives. All that needs to be considered. Councillor Drew, you had a question?
No, I'm just
Okay.
trying to make a motion.
Anybody else? Okay, all right, so Councillor Drew was going to make the
Let's
motion.
make a motion that bylaw 1559D, the first reading.
Thank you. Regarding the West Area Structure Plan Amendment. All in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Nolan. Thank you. All right, we now have
Through the minutes.
the approval of the minutes. Under 5, adoption of minutes, we had a regular council meeting on June 26th. Questions, comments? Seeing none? Yeah, so Councillor Brown is
I make a
making that motion.
To approve the minutes of June 26, 2018.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. All right, so let's go to 6A, bylaw and policy. Here we are dealing with third reading for the bylaw 1617 nuisance deer advisory ad hoc committee. So you have the possibility of ratifying that bylaw at this point for a committee to be set up.
Question,
Christian?
have we had, has this gone out now to the public?
The bylaw's not passed yet.
But once we do, then we would have to take it out there. I want to move, then we
Okay,
move to approve third reading for bylaw 1670, nuisance deer advisory ad hoc committee.
okay, thank you. Questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you very much. Let's go to bylaw 1671. This one is a recreation facility exploration ad hoc committee. And Councillor Selk?
It's third reading of bylaw 1670, recreation facility exploration committee.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you very much. Let's go to 6E, draft bylaw amendment 1584A, Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. Councillor Brown, do you want to?
Can I have,
Go ahead, Jim.
can I have some discussion on 6C and D still? I'd request a motion of council to set the public hearing dates for those two bylaws.
Oh, yes,
So,
absolutely.
If I could have
I
some
left those
discussion on the
side.
appropriateness of a summer public hearing versus waiting till
Yeah.
September, and then a motion for those two
Yeah.
bylaws. Thank you.
I thought that we decided September was the right time.
Question, then I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
Jeff, I thought I heard September 11th.
That's
Yes,
that's your
that's-
next regular council meeting after August, yes.
I move that we have public hearing on September the 11th
For
for both of those.
full draft 1647C and 155090. Okay. All in favor? Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, Councillor Brown, let's go back to the bylaw 1584A.
So in regards to this, I sit on the Parks and Rec Committee board, and they are putting new people on. We've had some people leave. And one of the problems of this board consistently since I've been on is people showing up. They just don't have enough, and then all of a sudden we don't have enough for quorum, so we can't hold a meeting. So according to their bylaws, it says that we need so many. They're requesting that we have one more person so that we can have quorum when this person regularly doesn't show up.
Totally agreed. Okay, so are we finding that an issue?
Just a comment, when I was the rep, it was the same thing all the time, Councillor Brown.
Okay,
There's always somebody that didn't show up, and it was a real hassle, so we need to do that, so I support that.
So I make a motion to approve bylaw 1584A.
Amendment.
First
Second,
reading.
First reading.
Amendment first reading.
First reading. Okay, all in favor? Thank you very much.
It's your call if you want to do more readings.
We could do second reading, it wouldn't hurt, really. Yes.
I make a motion to do second reading for bylaw amendment 1584A.
Okay, all in favor? Honestly, that will be pretty good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so let's go to 7, other business. Community in Bloom request, Councillor Brown, it's yours.
Okay, so Jeff, you wanted
Yeah.
to speak on this? Go ahead.
I have
All right.
nothing to defer to here, so I guess.
Okay, so, thank you. So Jeff is Councillor Brown, that's okay.
Sure.
I'm
Councillor Brown,
speaking after him, but
Yeah,
he wanted a
we
minute.
spoke
so-
briefly. This RFD that you received came to me from Communities in Bloom about hiring someone to take care of flower beds and do that work in the town. You'll see in red, I put some of my comments. I
Yes.
didn't want to alter their request. I was fine with that coming forward. I just commented that There's a number of these small items that we can delegate to current staff. So it doesn't bother me in the least to have the caretaker of this building doing some weeding, taking care of some beds around this building. The girls that water, the staff that water down on Main Street can certainly look after some of the baskets as they go down, spend a few more minutes, pull some weeds, those kind of things. That's fine with me. The one that takes a little more time I put in there is Sunset Park. And that one stems from the genesis of Sunset Park as a community initiative but I respect fully that those people at that time have maybe gotten a little older, maybe moved away, maybe things have changed. So I actually think everything could be absorbed into the current seasonal park staff, as long as the Communities in Bloom group is okay that maybe what's there changes over time. So maybe there aren't annuals that are planted there every year. It might go to some kind of perennial ground cover or junipers or something that's simply a lower maintenance. And that's been discussed back and forth over the years. So that's all I threw out there. There was a very good suggestion, or generous suggestion I should say, that any of the excess budget from CIB could pay for this person. So we could certainly look at that for this year if we have someone taking care of Sunset, for example, in the North Triangle, because they're already planted. That I don't think that would cost us that much. I think it'd be fairly minimal. And then my current staff can absorb the rest. That's basically what I'm throwing out. The only thing I'd need from council, if you want to do something different, is if it requires some cash, we just need to determine where it came from. But I don't think we will this year. I think we can manage it.
All right, sounds good. Thank you very much for the update. Councillor Brown?
So essentially, we did talk with, Randy Russell came to our meeting and we talked with him, and it was just suggested, we agree Sunset Park was not made as a project that is easily taken care of. And so Communities in Bloom had no problem and suggested putting flowers in that did not need deadheading all the time and all sorts of other things. So there's no problem in regards to that. So that wasn't the issue. The issue was brought up that Randy didn't think that his workers would have enough time for weeding and those kinds of things. And something that our president, Diane Barnes, brought up was our Communities in Bloom don't have time to be going out and weeding every day. And she didn't want that being on this council, or not council, but this board that I sit on. She didn't feel like she can't go out every day and weed. She doesn't have the time. And so she just really wanted to make sure that we have this extra money that they're not using in Communities in Bloom. They were fine to give it back if we could hire somebody part-time to make sure that that is taken care of.
We used to do that in the past.
Because Communities in Bloom is all about beautification of the town of Kirkstone. So it was important. Sorry?
We had a paid laborer.
Well, I should just qualify that. So one day I walked out of the Civic Center and there was a great person, great girl there weeding. I said, "Hi, who are you?" "Well, I do the weeding for the town." Never met this person in my life, had no idea they worked for us. But apparently Communities in Bloom had, quote unquote, hired this person to do weeding, which is fine. No, this was a couple years ago. And again, I took no exception to, again, she was fantastic and that was all great. But my questions are, well, who's covering this person for WCB? Who's paying CPP, EI? How is this, are they following our safety program? Is any of this happening? So I made a comment to Communities in Bloom at the time that you can't just go hiring people. I recognize it wasn't even a formal hiring thing per se, but I said I'd be more comfortable if we need somebody part-time, let's hire somebody part-time. And go about it so that they're with the town and they're covered and everything's good. So, but we could certainly look at, in fact, I was just working on one today, we're bringing in somebody on a very, very, very one-time temporary basis where we're just doing some exclusions on WCB and EI, and as long as we do the paperwork, we're fine. So I'm very open to using some unspent CIB, finding someone in the community that for $1,000 or whatever will do it all year. That's great for me too.
Okay, Councillor Bengry, Councillor Selk.
I think when we have requests like this from our committees, that we need to run them past Jeff. He's our CIO, and I believe it's under his mandate that he looks at it. And I appreciate what you're saying, Jeff, that you have people in place that can be doing that, assign these topics. I was in McGrath the other day, checking on cemetery plots down there, I run across their person that's in charge of everything. He mows 3 ball diamonds. He's in charge of mowing ball diamonds. The agri complex, all of the weeding and mowing. He's in charge of the water plant. He's in charge of everything. And he's got 4 people working for him. And his mowing is about 2 times what we have in Cardston. And it's, he covers it pretty good.
Okay, we're not there to compare each other.
No, I'm saying that I think it's in just, you
Yeah.
know, favor.
Well, it's the administrator.
We don't micromanage him, and we just need to bring these requests
Well,
and run past him and see what he does with them.
essentially, as a committee, we were trying in the past, and Councillor Creed would remember that, to try to alleviate all the labor that we could not, as a committee, deal with, but we didn't go about it quite the right way.
No, the position of CIB was good, is that if they were going to create all these things, then they were going to try and keep them up themselves. That was the intent, that if we're going to bring all this in, we're going to plan these things, that we're going to put the manpower behind it. And that's good.
There is the administration portion for safety of the workers that needs to be looked after, and you say a waiver does work also. Yes,
Okay, in the spirit of moving this ahead,
please, go ahead.
Jeff, what do you need from us, like a motion that we would allow the town to hire a very part-time person to do this for this year, and possibly absorb it into our staff next year?
If Councilor Brown, if you feel, if your discussion was there was probably a little bit of money left over in the budget from CIB, then I don't need anything,
Exactly.
because we're covered.
Okay, essentially what we need to know, Councillor
But to be
Brown.
clear, to be crystal clear, Communities in Bloom did run it past Jeff. We are not micromanaging him.
No.
We did run it past Jeff. Jeff suggested that we bring it to council. So we
Thank
did
you.
the right order here.
Yeah, my thought was, the request on its face was to hire a part-time person, which
Well,
isn't my intention at this point.
Right.
But if that was council's priority, then
Right.
let's do it. I just need a
Right.
motion. But I
Exactly.
think we can manage it between
Okay.
CIB budget
Perfect.
and current staffing levels.
Awesome.
That we're good.
Okay, all right, guys. Essentially, all what we need to know is that person then going to have a waiver of those...
Well, I'll take
Go
care of
ahead.
that. Yeah, I'll take care of that.
Yeah,
That's-
done.
Yeah.
Fine.
So you'll get a part-time.
If you need anything from us, let me
So how many
let us
hours
know.
would that entail, Paula?
Nope, we're not.
We
there.
were thinking 6 a week, like, not much. It's pretty minor.
Probably right.
Okay, all right, let Councillor Bengry, and then we move on.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we turn this back to our CAO for his
It does not
response.
need any.
Yeah, just leave it
It
then.
just
Don't make
said-
a motion for it.
It
Yeah,
just said
leave
it didn't
Thank
need
you.
any.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thanks. The next one, Councillor Selk, I'm going to give it to you, 7B, the annual financial audit proposals. There were 3 or 4.
There were 4 proposals that were presented to the audit committee, and after reviewing them, the audit committee is recommending that we go with Mercer Wild as the accounting firm to complete our audits for how long, Jeff?
3 years.
3 years, yeah.
That's what we're recommending.
Is this what we're using now, or are we changing?
No, our current auditor didn't propose it yet.
Okay.
Didn't propose for
Yeah.
it.
All right, so I am quite confident from speaking with Jeff that there was quite a bit of analytic work that went behind the proposal before decision was made. So thank you, Councillor Selk and your committee for looking into this appointment. So we need to approve it. Yes.
Make a motion that we accept the proposal from Mercer Wild as our auditor for the next 3 years.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. All right, the next one is a very common one. Every quarter, we have to report on the problems that the electrical system may have incurred. We had no problem, therefore, we just need to have an approval of the report.
I'll make a motion to approve the quarterly report for the compliance, conduct compliance.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. All right. So if you need to look at the committees, There are some report. I must say the one of the mayor, the four mayors is not in there, but if you allow me a minute or so, I'm going to kind of talk about the different elements that were spoken of at that meeting. It was a meeting of June the 25th. The first item was a Chautauqua. The Chautauqua, the debrief is not complete yet. But what was discussed at the table is that volunteers are difficult to obtain for that event, the way it's set up. And the dates need to be discussed because we found ourselves in conflict with 2 or 3 other items in town. The other element that was discussed is that the format, the way it is, might not be the best recommended format. We are talking about the possibility of taking different events of the Chautauqua and stage them at different times in year. So that would make the whole idea maybe better for crowds. So that was that one. The second item was discussed was a handy bus. The handy bus, that would be Councillor who would be interested. Raymond will not continue the handy bus service after September the 1st. They were partners with AHS and Lifeline, and the funding has disappeared. Raymond is currently paying $6,000 a year. That is very low in comparison of what we pay. And they're not intending to sink in $30,000 we are doing for their town. So they are searching for regional partnership, possibly with Sterling. Anyways, they're looking at different formulas. So they're also going to go to Lethbridge. Lethbridge was talking about regional transportation hubs. So anyways, that's where they're at. The 4 communities decided they will set up a meeting to discuss the handybus associations and to meet and discuss best practice. So we will wait and see. Scott will be the one heading, Scott, the CEO for Raymond. Scott Barton will be the one heading that meeting. The next item was a very interesting item to us, was off-site levies. The off-site levies was very interesting because in Raymond, McGrath, Sterling, they do not levy off-site levies. And the reason they are not is because they feel that small developers would be at a disadvantage if those levies had to be paid. The question that we had for them was more an ethical question. Do you feel it's appropriate for a developer that regained and will recoup all his costs to not pay off-site levy and to allow the citizens of the town to become the supporters, subsidizing the developer that in turn makes the money? That didn't have an answer for us. So that just said from an economic development, that's what they chose to do, to attract people to the communities. But to me, it begs a question, is that economic development with subsidy, is that something where the town wants to go? We will have to discuss that. That will be at the next meeting. Okay? ICF, Raymond and the county are going straight to arbitration. They are not even starting to discuss. And AUMA may have a list of vetted consultants. And we are in a little bit of a different position. We are in the process of hiring a consultant. with the county. So here we go.
That would lead into another.
So I was thinking you may want to know where we're going. So that's my report on that mayors. I normally don't report as lengthy, but I thought all the topics were of interest to us all. Anything else regarding committees?
I have one thing that didn't get brought up, and that was previously we discussed for Communities in Bloom, we discussed Brother Creed came up with a design of a bench, and they wanted to put that at the E.J. Wood Memorial. And they've talked to Randy Russell and figured out that the area we wanted to put it in is a no-go. But they wanted approved location on 4th Avenue on the E.J. Wood lot directly across from the crosswalk. They've mapped it out. It looks like, according to water, trees, sidewalks, it's the perfect location for it. So they wanted me to bring it to council and...
Okay. So do you need a motion to approve the location?
Where's that at?
So it's on
Just
4th
across the
Avenue,
high school.
on E.J. Wood lot, directly across from the
Oh, the school,
crosswalk.
Yes,
Yes.
just across from the school.
Yep.
Where the old steps used to be up into the property?
Can we have
Can I
discrete?
comment just?
Yep.
All right. So our initial proposal was right on the corner, just
Right.
by the seminary. And when I looked at it, there's a light pole and a fire hydrant. It's just the visibility is not good. So I thought maybe down on 4th Avenue, and Randy went and looked at it, and he suggested between the first two trees, just going east from the corner. And there's not too much slope there. As you go farther down,
Right.
there gets to be more of a slope, and so between the first two trees, just right next to the sidewalk, seemed to be a good place. And it was email was sent to the committee members to see what they thought. Most have responded okay with that.
They agree.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Creed. Councillor Creed, as you know, is part of the committee of the committee in Bloom. We normally don't take the comment of the gallery like this without the delegation, but considering that you're part of that committee.
And you still call him Councillor. So.
Well, there you go on that one. I can't forget that we stuck together working on the same committee. Thank you. Councillor Bengry.
I've got a concern about that location for the Communities of Bloom. All your buses line up there and they pick up all the kids. Is that open to vandalism? I mean, that could be quite a vandalized area.
But everywhere in town is vandalized.
Yeah.
Not really. When you look at the temple sites that they put up, they have not been vandalized.
Well,
But this one exclusively, right there beside the school, right behind where the buses park, all that traffic, I don't know, I'd be concerned.
But there is a buffer there, Councillor. If you take a look, you're right on the crosswalk, and so there's a buffer on either side, but they can't park anyways. So those buses don't park right there. So to me, it's more open. I like the spot myself.
I understand what you're saying, but we talked about putting it in a more hidden area, and the complaint was it wasn't seen enough,
Yeah.
right? Because we were concerned about the vandalism, so we thought, let's go hide it up at Sunset Park. It's beautiful, it's,
Nobody
weeds
see it.
apparently, but other than that, it's good to go. But they didn't like that, so okay, now we're coming up with the next location. This location, we like that it's actually on the E.J. Wood, where the school was.
Yeah.
So whether we have it on the corner by the seminary, whether we have it by the crosswalk, I mean, the cougar at the high school doesn't get vandalized. And the good news is they're right on camera. So if they do get it
Yeah.
vandalized, smile.
Have you thought about Temple City Chapel?
They did. And there's tons of hoops to jump through just to make that happen.
All right, so we have a proposal. Councillor Bengry, you have a concern, and we appreciate you bringing that up. Anybody else with question or concerns? If not, we need a motion to move that forward. Councillor Brown.
I would like to make a motion that we accept to have the Communities in Bloom E.J. Wood Memorial on the location that I've suggested
On 4th. Okay.
on 4th.
Questions? Any further questions? Seeing none. All in favor? Thank you. And against? Thank you. And, you know, I am quite pleased when things don't always go perfect, because it just shows that at least the system is working. Yeah. Can we finish those reports and then we'll go back to it? So the CAO report, any comments?
It was a good briefing, Jeff.
It was quick, I'll admit.
It was full and brief. That was excellent.
Nice to have your question.
Go ahead.
Jeff, in your report, you talked about Fifth
Yeah.
Avenue. So I assume that as a result of the guys who work on Fifth Avenue, that's why the one project is canceled.
Correct. So just to make sure that makes sense, when you turn off Main Street onto Fifth, you kind of got that curve part past the provincial building and then you hit First. So when we did the budget, the plan was to replace the water line between First and Second, so just to the base of the hill. Because the mapping showed that the pipe from Main to First was a PVC pipe put in the mid-'80s. When they dug and exposed it, it isn't. It's an old water line, so they're saying, we're going to keep digging towards Main Street until we run into this mysterious 8-inch PVC pipe, which the maps say are there. In the event we go all the way to Main Street, we were going to do the top of the hill out towards the bypass. They're just going to scale that back correspondingly, and we'll have to do that next year as budget allows. So that's what's happening right now, is they've done all the intersection work, so they changed some valves they found that were quite old and leaking. They did a couple other things in there. And now they're seeing if that 8-inch actually shows up before Main Street or not. So that's just changing. It's always interesting when you get things uncovered and unearthed. There's always something to see. So that's what it means, is we've changed that on top of the hill.
So in all likelihood, by the soccer park there, it's going to get scaled back.
Yeah, not all the way to 7th. So 7th would be where the water fill station is. So we were planning on doing water line and asphalt all the way to 7th. It's going to come back correspondingly as far as we got to go towards Main Street to get an 8-inch PVC line. The point of going to 8-inch on the top of the hill was to increase fire flows on that west side. To have it neck down to 6 between Main and First made the whole thing futile.
Yeah.
So we've got to upgrade that as well.
Councillor Bengry. Oh, sorry, Councillor Selk is not.
So just thought, if you're scaling it back and it gets scaled back past the soccer park, is there some way we could do something with the crater to the moon there?
Yeah, we'll have to do. Yeah.
To get it.
Yeah, it's quite.
It's four-wheel drive.
Yeah, the guys suspect that that's one of those asphalt roads that they threw asphalt over some grass and black dirt. They suspect massive roadbed work to be done there when they uncover that. That's what they found in 3A Avenue when they tore that asphalt up. It was just sitting on the ground, and that's where the road went. And so, yes, there'll have to be some road work done there, I'm sure, regardless of how far we can get with paving. There's going to have to be something done there.
Okay.
Is there sewer lines underneath there in front of the school that need to be replaced?
No,
Or they're
there's
good?
only the water.
Okay,
Just water.
Councillor Bengry had his hand up.
Jeff, First Street East off of the Fifth Avenue.
Yep.
There's 3 residents to the south. Are they going to get new services?
So we're not going to replace the main into there. They're going to replace it through the intersection, so we don't ever have to dig up the intersection if we replace that main. So they'll replace it out of the intersection. But their main, I think, from what I understand, is fine, just for the 3 residents that are on it.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none? Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
just so you know, when they do those intersections, even if they're not going, for example, north down First, they'll usually always put new out of the intersection. That way we know it's new there, we don't have to dig up the intersection prematurely if we do another section of road later. So I anticipate that's what's happening then, all 4 ways there.
Okay, Councillor Bengry?
Jeff, one more. When we do our planning at AUMA, our day planning, can we look at the access, sidewalk access for wheelchairs? We have some that are very, very steep and dangerous,
Sure.
Well,
We can talk about it at a committee meeting between now and then.
Okay.
I think you can bring it to a meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got some that are, very critical, and they're sloped off really fast, and a person in a wheelchair took a spill the other day at the one at the end of.
So maybe put that on the agenda then for that first CCW meeting.
I mean, it's something that can come up as part of, if we just know the locations of concern,
It
it's
should be
simply something
brought
we
up
can deal
to
with
the
through budget,
administration.
right? That's really where we can deal with
Okay.
it. Okay.
Thank you. We never want to see our seniors or anybody who has less mobility fall because of infrastructure, for sure not. Peace officer report, any question regarding that? As you can see, he's a busy man. Census report. It is something very encouraging to me. It's something that I totally thought
Yeah, me too.
was the case. So unofficially, and not for the official record, because we're not there yet, we need the audit of the census report. But you can see that the number is significantly up by a good 10%.
324, yeah.
Okay, so that would be something, almost 10%, it's about 9% up from the population we have currently. Once we have the audit completed, we will then publicize the results. Thank you.
Mayor, it also plays a significant impact on our grandson.
Well, this is why we did it.
Yes.
This is why I wanted it done even as early as last council meeting, if you recall. Okay, development report. You have that on the front of you too for your information. Let's go back to 8A. There is a financial dated May 31st. And if you have any question, please let me know. If not, this is also for your information. As you can see, we are collecting our taxes very well this year. It's moving along pretty good.
Jeff, I got one question on this. Let me find it. We've got a loan repayments on the capital expenditures. Just below that, first one, it says loan repayments. What loan is that?
So we have two loans.
Debenture.
We have the debenture for the sewer outfall line,
Okay.
and we have the NMAX financing for solar.
Okay, now the sewer outflow line,
Yep.
have we taken care of that problem?
Uh,
Bursting and so forth?
So, no, except that we haven't had any problems, knock on wood. Don't jinx it, Councillor, but it's been quiet for a few months. Where it's at right now, the mayor actually coincidentally just barely asked me about this. We had the pipe tested by IPEX, the provider. They said the pipe was fine. Stantec's not wholly convinced, so we've sent pipe to a third-party lab for testing to see what they come back with. And we haven't heard anything, but again, thankfully, we haven't had another issue in a few months now.
Right.
Again, knock on wood.
All right, Councillor.
And under assets, the financial assets, we have got land held for resale.
Yep.
Yes.
How many years have we been holding this?
Well, that's just any land still under the town's name.
Oh, is it?
What it's just the
All-
value of land that we're sitting on.
Okay.
Now, I should correct that, sorry. It is land that we could sell, so it's not the land this building's on. It's
Right.
not the land the public works shop is on. It's not the transfer station. So it's available land that we could sell and the value of it.
And it's assessed all the time?
I would say it's assessed as much as the auditor wants it assessed, but I don't know the frequency. But it has to be, for audit purposes, it has to be some reasonable spend, but I'm not sure what it is.
Thank you.
I mean, there's quite a few parcels that are still available in the industrial park.
Are we putting in candidates when you send on these? Do we need to, as a council, to look at these and maybe look at an incentive?
But
Your call.
this is a story of the levy and all that. We'll talk about it next time.
Well,
Yes, that's when it will be a good time to talk, because right now the item is financial report, right? So what we need to is agree with that report or not. Any other item, Councillor, bring them up and put them on the agenda. And that would be a good place for it. So we don't need a motion to approve that financial as you recall.
Nothing else on financial?
Thank you. Okay, let's move on. 11 is just correspondence. Service Alberta, Supernet.
I have a question on that Supernet.
Go ahead.
What is its purpose if it's not intended for, it's not internet, never directly provide internet to homes and business? What does it do?
Well,
So
it's a long story.
So SuperNet is simply a backbone infrastructure for particularly public buildings all through the province.
It was schools,
So
hospitals.
schools, hospitals, it's laying in our
Libraries.
buildings. There's coiled up in our basement, we're just not using it. So schools are on it here, the hospital ironically isn't here.
Yeah.
But basically just the schools here are using it, and I think the provincial buildings. So it's a fiber optic network throughout the province for public sector buildings. Now what you're finding with Axia, the business plan was that they were using it as the backbone for their private industry service, which is fine. And now Bell has taken that over the use of the SuperNet. So Axia was who was managing the SuperNet for the province, and now it's going to be Bell. So that's all that's changed there, is the contractor to maintain it has changed.
So we were in negotiations with Axia.
Yeah.
Are we now switching to Bell?
Well, Axia, I heard today, although I have not confirmed this, so I'm not trying to spread gossip here, but I've heard as part of this, Bell is trying to buy Axia.
Right.
So because there was this huge debate over, well, who should, Axia said, we put all this money into the SuperNet, now to give it to Bell, we want compensated, and so as part of the whole deal, Bell said, well, what if we bought them? What if we were all one company again? So I really don't know right now, and neither does the folks at Axia, frankly, what it looks like.
Right now, we're waiting for further information.
Yeah, so we're on hold
The
basically.
dust needs to settle a bit here, yeah.
Yeah, but eventually it'll be resolved because infrastructure as such
Yeah.
is very valuable. Okay, 11B, AUMA, those are conference events and the pre-conference. So if any of your spouses intend to go to the conference, please let administration know if they need to reserve for the conference event for spouses.
Hospitality rooms, etc.
Yeah. Okay. So 11C, Alberta Rec and Park Association, notice of elected official courses. So Councillor Bond, you want to talk about that? Not really, there's nothing there, so there's a course if you intend to take it. 11D, Alberta Culture and Tourism. They are seeking for award nominations. Already, if you think of anybody that should be recognized, please let the administration know.
Have we ever done this? Comes up every year.
Well, you know, some
we have
years we
anybody
think of somebody outstanding, but if you have name, as I say, pass them on to administration.
Okay.
And that is it for the public portion of our meeting. And it's absolutely amazing, councillors, I know in 5 minutes.
I'll
Yes.
make a motion to go in camera.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you so much. Thank you to the media. Thank you, Councillor, for being here, and thank you, Corey. I didn't recognize both of you.
Councillor Freeman.
And much appreciated your presence.
I didn't see any background on any of